She whispered, "You'll regret choosing me." The rancher smiled. "I already regret waiting this long." Dust swirled across the dry plains as a gentle wind rustled through the golden grass. Ronan Graves sat on the wooden fence surrounding his ranch, his weathered hands gripping the rail, eyes scanning the horizon. He had been waiting for weeks, maybe even months, for the arrival of a Velari envoy, the first of its kind willing to make contact with humans on the frontier. His livestock grazed quietly, the genetically enhanced cattle he had bred for strength and resilience moving slowly across the paddock. They were hardy, like Ronan himself, built to survive the harsh world on the edge of human space. But nothing in his life had prepared him for what or who was coming. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Far across the plains, a shimmer of silver light hovered, almost like a reflection dancing across the grass. Ronan squinted, shielding his eyes from the dying sun. It was her. Lyra stepped from the light. Her form was elegant, humanoid, but her skin shimmered faintly, almost as if it were catching the last rays of the sun and bending them. Her eyes glowed a soft cerulean, and when she looked at him, Ronan felt a strange chill in his chest, a mix of fear, awe, and something he didn't recognize. "You'll regret choosing me," she whispered, her voice soft but firm, carrying a weight of warning that made the hairs on Ronan's arms stand on end. Ronan leaned back against the fence, the corners of his mouth curling into a crooked smile. "I already regret waiting this long," he said, his voice steady, calm, yet filled with his usual stubborn humor. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, almost amused, almost disbelieving. She studied him carefully, tilting her head. "You are human." The statement was more than observation. It carried disbelief, like she was trying to understand a puzzle she didn't think she could solve. "I'm more than human," Ronan replied with a chuckle, letting the humor soften the tension. "I'm stubborn, loud, and I've got a mean streak when it comes to protecting what's mine. You're welcome to test that if you want." Lyra took a careful step closer. Her movements were fluid, precise, like water flowing over stones. She stopped just a few feet from him, the air between them tingling faintly with energy, a subtle hum that Ronan felt more than heard. "I am not here to fight," she said, "but survival requires caution. The universe does not forgive mistakes lightly." Ronan's eyes scanned her from head to toe, noting the faint markings along her arms that glowed like veins of light beneath her skin. "Survival," he repeated, letting the word linger. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing about my ranch. Seems like we're in agreement." Lyra's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Perhaps, but survival is more than protecting land or livestock. You do not yet understand the dangers that lie beyond your horizon." Ronan shrugged. "Maybe not, but I know humans. We adapt, we fight, and we don't give up." Ever, his gaze softened slightly, a mix of pride and quiet loneliness. "I've been waiting a long time for someone like you, Lyra, not just to survive, but to understand what's out there with me." The wind carried the scent of dust and grass between them. Lyra studied him silently, as if weighing every word he had spoken. Finally, she nodded. "Then perhaps it is time you understand." She extended a hand, delicate and glowing with faint energy. Ronan hesitated, then took it. The moment their hands touched, a warmth spread through him, not unlike sunlight on cold skin. But it was more than warmth, it was a connection, a spark of something neither human nor Velari had fully named. "You will see things," Lyra said quietly. "Things that will challenge your very nature. The universe is vast and it does not bend to any one species. But humans have a strange way of bending to it anyway." Ronan laughed softly, a low rumble that carried across the plains. "I like that. Sounds like we have a lot to teach each other." Lyra's eyes shimmered, the cerulean glow flickering like distant stars. "Perhaps, but first you must prove that you are ready, not for me, for yourself." Ronan tilted his head. "Prove myself?" "Yes," she said. "Survival is not just about strength. It is about judgment, patience, and the willingness to face what you cannot control. Ronan's lips curved into a wry grin. Well, patience is not my strong suit, but facing the unknown, that's pretty much my specialty. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then motioned toward the horizon. Then follow me. There is much to see, and time is short. Ronan's heart quickened, but he followed. The plain stretched endlessly before them, dotted with strange metallic structures left over from old human expeditions. The air carried a faint hum, a subtle vibration that seemed to sync with Lyra's presence. With every step, Ronan felt the boundary between human and alien blur, a fragile bridge forming between their worlds. As they walked, Lyra spoke of things Ronan had only read in ancient records: stellar winds that could tear through unshielded ships, planets with oceans of acid, life forms that defied all human biology. Yet her tone was never condescending. It was factual, precise, tinged with caution. "You humans," she said after a long pause, "you endure so much and yet you continue to push forward. It is remarkable." Ronan shrugged, kicking at a small rock. "We don't really have a choice. The universe doesn't wait for us. We adapt or we die, simple as that." Lyra considered him silently. Then, almost imperceptibly, her posture relaxed. "Perhaps that is why I came to you." They reached a small plateau overlooking the edge of the valley, the last rays of sunlight casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Below, the plains stretched endlessly, a mix of gold and green, dotted with the silhouettes of Ronan's herd. "This is where you will begin," Lyra said. "The first lesson is simple. Survival is not just about fighting, it is about understanding. Understanding your environment, your allies, and your enemies." Ronan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I've been doing that my whole life. Maybe it's time to see how much more I can learn." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Good, then we start at dawn. And remember," her voice softened, almost a whisper against the wind, "you will regret choosing me." Ronan looked at her, his expression calm, almost teasing. "I already regret waiting this long." The two stood in silence as night fell, the stars emerging one by one over the vast plains of Aurora's edge. For the first time in his life, Ronan felt that survival might mean more than just protecting land or livestock. It might mean embracing the unknown, learning from it, and standing alongside a being that challenged everything he thought he knew. And as Lyra turned her gaze to the stars, Ronan knew one thing with certainty. The universe was wide, dangerous, and unforgiving, but he was ready. Because humans always were. The first light of dawn spilled across Aurora's edge, washing the plains in soft gold. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of earth and dew. Ronan Graves stood outside his small cabin, boots crunching over the gravel path. Beside him, Lyra hovered slightly, her form glimmering in the morning light, as if sunlight and something otherworldly danced along her skin. "Ready?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Ronan smirked, adjusting the brim of his worn hat. "As ready as I'll ever be. Just try not to scare my herd too much, okay?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "Your confidence, it is remarkable. Humans often act without preparation, yet you survive. Perhaps this will work." They started across the plains toward a rocky formation in the distance. Lyra called it a learning field, a space she had prepared to test humans in ways they could survive but not predict. For her, it was about evaluating judgment, patience, and adaptability. For Ronan, it was a chance to prove that humans were more than stubborn. They were capable, clever, and unyielding. The first challenge came sooner than Ronan expected. As they approached the rocky cliffs, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Dust rose from the earth, and the genetically enhanced cattle in the valley below began to panic. "Not the herd!" Ronan shouted, sprinting toward the edge of the plateau to calm them. His voice carried over the plains, low and commanding. "Easy, easy, back to the paddock. Now." Lyra followed quickly, moving with grace that made her almost seem to float. She extended her hands, a faint glow emanating from her palms. The tremor subsided, but she was not controlling the earth. She was amplifying Ronan's instructions, projecting his voice and presence to calm the animals. Ronan glanced at her, eyebrows raised. "You could have just told me that instead of letting me run like a fool." Lyra's lips curved in the smallest hint of amusement. "Part of the trial is observing how you respond under pressure. Humans, you panic first, then adapt." "Interesting." Ronan shook his head, rubbing at the sweat on his brow. "Adaptation is a human specialty, you'll see." They moved further into the rocky field. Boulders stacked unnaturally high created a maze-like environment. Lyra's voice guided him. "Your first task is not to run. You must find a path through without triggering the traps I have set." Ronan eyed the rocks warily. There were faint glimmers on certain surfaces, almost invisible to the human eye, but Lyra's instructions highlighted them. Hidden energy sensors would trigger a minor, but harmless, explosion, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The test was simple: patience and observation over brute force. Ronan took a deep breath. His hands traced the edge of a boulder. His instincts told him to charge forward, to leap and climb, but Lyra's calm guidance reminded him to slow down. Step by step, he moved carefully, noticing subtle differences in the rock's color, texture, and vibration. After several tense minutes, he reached a flat area at the center of the rocky formation. Sparks flared behind him as one of the traps triggered, but it was harmless. He looked back at Lyra, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Not bad," she said. "Humans often rely on strength. You relied on thought. That is commendable." Ronan grinned, chest heaving. "Strength has its place, but brains get you farther when you don't want to blow yourself up." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "A human trait I am beginning to understand and respect." The next trial tested endurance and cooperation. Lyra led him to a canyon filled with alien wildlife, creatures that moved with silent precision and had the ability to camouflage perfectly with their surroundings. Their task was simple: traverse the canyon without alarming the wildlife. Any disturbance would trigger an automated alert system Lyra had set up, simulating how the animals would react to threats. Ronan glanced at the canyon walls, jagged and uneven. The creatures were like shadows flitting in the corners of his vision, almost invisible. He crouched low, moving carefully, whispering instructions to his cattle via a small device he had built himself to communicate across the herd. Lyra floated alongside him, observing silently. "Humans are unpredictable. You find ways to adapt in the moment. Most species I have studied would panic and fail." Ronan chuckled softly. "That's because we're stubborn. We don't give up even when the odds are against us." Halfway through the canyon, one of the creatures, a small, six-legged predator with shimmering scales, darted toward Ronan. He froze, instinct battling strategy. Then, remembering Lyra's earlier lesson, he used his environment. He kicked a small rock into the path of the creature, startling it enough to stop it without harm. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Clever. Humans do not rely solely on technology. You use what is available instinctively." Ronan shrugged, brushing dirt from his pants. "Instinct is free, unlike fancy alien gadgets." By the time they reached the canyon exit, both were tired but unbowed. Ronan's breathing was heavy and his clothes were dusty, but his spirit remained intact. Lyra, observing him, noted something she had not expected. Humans did not break under stress. They adapted, improvised, and often thrived in situations that would overwhelm other species. As they climbed to a plateau overlooking the canyon, Lyra spoke again. "You see, Ronan's survival is more than brute strength or technology. It is awareness, patience, judgment, and courage. You possess all these qualities." Ronan laughed, a deep, satisfying sound. "I told you, humans are full of surprises." But their trials were not yet over. Lyra led him to a structure made of shimmering, translucent material, hovering slightly above the ground. "This is your final test for today," she said. "It will challenge both your mind and your resolve." The structure was a puzzle of energy fields, shifting platforms, and floating orbs. The goal was to reach the center, where a small beacon emitted a faint light. Touching it would complete the trial, but the path required precise timing, coordination, and trust in one another. Ronan studied it carefully. His first instinct was to leap forward, relying on human agility, but Lyra's voice reminded him, "Observe, then act. One wrong move and the trial resets." He nodded, taking a deep breath. Step by step, he navigated the platforms, timing his jumps to avoid shifting energy fields. Lyra moved alongside him, providing subtle guidance and altering the field slightly to keep the challenge fair but demanding. At one point, a platform tilted dangerously beneath him. Ronan grabbed an energy orb for balance, nearly losing his footing. Lyra reached out and her hand hovered near his, a soft glow connecting them, stabilizing him just enough to regain balance. "Thanks," he muttered, continuing. "You are learning," Lyra said softly. "Humans often underestimate the value of teamwork, but you understand it intuitively." Finally, they reached the center. Ronan placed his hand on the beacon. A wave of light surged through the structure, sending ripples across the plains. Sparks of energy danced across his skin, but instead of pain, he felt clarity, an understanding of timing, coordination, and the importance of observation. Lyra stepped beside him, her eyes glowing faintly. "You have completed today's trial. Not because I helped you, but because you adapted, persisted, and understood. That is what makes humans remarkable." Ronan wiped sweat from his brow, grinning. "Remarkable, huh? I'll take it. But I have a feeling the next trial won't be so easy." Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. "Perhaps, but know this, I did not come to make things easy. I came to see if you and your species can survive what is to come. You have shown promise today, but the universe does not forgive mistakes." Ronan's gaze drifted to the horizon. The plain stretched endlessly, golden and inviting, yet filled with unknown dangers. "We humans don't usually wait for permission," he said quietly. "We face what's coming and we find a way to win." Lyra studied him, her expression unreadable. Then with a soft hum of energy she nodded. "Perhaps that is why I came to you. Humans are stubborn, relentless, and dangerous in ways most species cannot comprehend. I will observe. You will teach me. And together, perhaps we will endure." Ronan laughed softly, the sound carrying across the plains. "Endure? That's just the start. Humans don't just endure, we adapt, we grow, and we fight back. Always." The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across Aurora's edge. The first day of trials had ended, but the bond between human and Velari had only begun to form. In the quiet aftermath, Ronan felt a flicker of hope, a sense that, despite the vast dangers ahead, humanity's spirit, stubborn and unyielding, could face even the unknown. And Lyra, watching him, began to understand why humans were so feared and admired across the stars. Because they never gave up. Aurora's edge was quiet that morning, but the calm was deceptive. The sun had barely risen when a distant rumble reached Ronan's ears. He froze, his instincts kicking in. Something was wrong. "Lyra," he called, scanning the horizon. "Do you feel that?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly as she sensed the subtle vibrations in the earth. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm but tense. "This is not natural. Something approaches fast." Ronan gritted his teeth. "Then it's time to see what humans and aliens can do together." Below the cliffs of his ranch, a small group of humans, rival ranchers who had long been suspicious of Ronan's work with Velari, had arrived. They moved quickly, using modified vehicles and drones to disrupt the herd. Their plan was clear: destroy Ronan's livestock and prove that alien influence was dangerous, untrustworthy, and a threat to human communities. Ronan sprinted down the rocky path, his boots kicking up dust. The herd panicked at the approaching threat, scattering in all directions. He whistled sharply, using a device he had engineered to calm them. The signal emitted a low-frequency pulse that the animals instinctively recognized. Slowly, they began to regroup. Lyra hovered above, energy shimmering along her arms. She extended her hands toward the attackers, sending a subtle pulse through the ground. It wasn't lethal, Lyra had made sure, but it caused the drones to wobble and the vehicles to sputter. Sparks flew as the electronics glitched. Ronan smirked. Not bad, but can you handle the humans themselves? Lyra's eyes glimmered with faint amusement. Watch and learn. Ronan picked up a large piece of equipment he had built himself, a modified herding tool that doubled as a defensive device. He swung it toward the approaching vehicles, sending a shockwave of compressed air that forced them to slow down. The rival ranchers cursed, surprised by the ingenuity of someone they had underestimated. One of the drones hovered closer, scanning the herd for vulnerabilities. Ronan grabbed a rope and swung it in an arc, entangling the drone's propellers. Sparks flew as the machine crashed to the ground. He glanced at Lyra, who floated nearby, projecting a shield of energy to protect the cattle from flying debris. "You humans are resilient," she said, almost in awe. "Most species would panic and scatter. You adapt immediately." Ronan laughed, brushing dust from his coat. "It's what we do. Adapt, survive, and fight back when necessary." The rival ranchers had not expected Ronan to fight back. They regrouped, moving on foot now, carrying tools and makeshift weapons. They thought they could intimidate him, but Ronan had learned long ago that intimidation rarely worked on humans like him. He moved quickly, positioning himself between the herd and the attackers. Lyra joined him on the ground, her form glimmering as she projected small energy barriers to block projectiles. "You humans are unpredictable," she said, her voice low. "I did not expect such quick thinking." Ronan grinned. "Unpredictable is our specialty." One of the rival ranchers lunged at him, swinging a metal rod. Ronan sidestepped, grabbing a nearby rock and throwing it with precision to distract the attacker. Another rancher aimed a small blaster at him, but Lyra's energy shield flickered into place just in time, deflecting the shot harmlessly into the dust. "Nice work," Ronan said, nodding at her. "Teamwork seems to suit us." Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly. "You are learning quickly. Humans and Velari can coexist, and perhaps thrive." The battle intensified. The rival ranchers attempted to corral the herd, but Ronan's devices, combined with Lyra's alien technology, created a maze of obstacles that slowed their advance. Electrified fences, energy barriers, and rapid herding tactics forced the attackers to retreat step by step. At one point, a drone swooped low, aiming directly at Ronan. He rolled aside just in time, using a combination of agility and timing he had perfected over years on the ranch. Lyra extended a hand, and the drone was lifted slightly off the ground by a pulse of energy, harmlessly crashing into a nearby boulder. "You are impressive," Lyra admitted, her voice tinged with awe. "Humans survive where others fail." Ronan wiped sweat from his brow, breathing heavily but determined. "We don't just survive, we adapt. And when someone tries to take what's ours, we fight back." The rival ranchers hesitated, realizing that this human, Ronan, was not ordinary. He did not rely solely on technology. He relied on instinct, observation, and the environment around him. And with Lyra at his side, their combination was far beyond anything the attackers had expected. Finally, the rival group retreated, muttering curses as they disappeared into the distance. Ronan lowered his defensive stance, chest heaving, but his expression was one of satisfaction. Lyra hovered nearby, her glow dimming slightly as she observed him. "Your species is remarkable. You face danger directly, yet you think ahead, using every tool at your disposal." Ronan chuckled softly. "It's called survival instinct. Humans have it in their blood, and stubbornness. Lots of stubbornness." The herd began to calm, gathering around Ronan as he whistled softly. He checked each animal, making sure none were hurt. Lyra's energy barrier flickered away as she stepped closer. "You did well today," she said. "Most species would have failed under this pressure. Humans, you do not fail easily." Ronan smiled, brushing dirt from his hands. "Failure is not an option, not for me. Not for anyone who counts on me." Lyra tilted her head, observing him silently. "Perhaps that is why I came to you. Humans possess qualities that cannot be replicated: courage, ingenuity, and an unyielding will. I am beginning to understand your species." Ronan laughed softly, looking out over the plains. "Understanding humans takes time, but you're learning fast. That's good enough for me." The day passed slowly after the attack. Ronan repaired fences, checked the livestock, and recalibrated his defensive devices. Lyra watched silently, offering guidance and advice where needed, but allowing Ronan to lead. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across Aurora's edge, Lyra spoke again. "The trial was not just about defending your herd. It was about observing your response under real threat. You excelled." Ronan leaned against a fence, exhaustion mixing with pride. "Thanks, but you know, defending the ranch isn't just a trial for me. It's what I do every day: adapt, survive, protect. And now it's what we do together." Lyra's eyes softened, glimmering with faint light. "Humans fight not just for survival but for something greater. That is remarkable. Most species fight for themselves only. You fight for others as well." Ronan nodded, glancing at the horizon. "That's how we survive out here. Alone, we're weak. Together, we're strong. And if someone tries to take what's ours, well, they'll regret it." Lyra's lips curved in the smallest hint of a smile. "Perhaps that is why I warned you. I did not expect you to be prepared for such a challenge, but now I see that humans are not easily intimidated." Ronan chuckled softly. "You're learning fast. Just remember, Lyra, waiting and watching is one thing. Acting and surviving, that's another. And humans, we excel at both." Night fell across the plains, bringing a quiet calm. The herd settled, and the dust of the day settled around the ranch. Ronan sat on the fence again, watching the stars appear, one by one. Lyra hovered beside him, her glow soft and steady. "You faced the unknown today," she said quietly, "and you prevailed. Most species would have faltered, but humans endure." Ronan smiled, tipping his hat back. "Endurance is just the start. Humans adapt, we learn, and we fight for what matters. That's how we survive and thrive." Lyra's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. "Perhaps that is why I came here, to see if humanity could meet the challenges ahead, and now I believe it can." Ronan's eyes reflected the starlight. "Challenges are coming, Lyra, bigger than this. But we'll face them together." And for the first time, Lyra felt a sense of confidence in their partnership. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and astonishingly capable. With Ronan by her side, she began to understand that survival was not just about skill or technology. It was about courage, determination, and the human spirit. Because humans never gave up. And in the quiet night of Aurora's edge, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that humanity's resilience had once again proven itself. Aurora's edge lay quiet beneath a silver moon, the plains bathed in soft light. Ronan Graves stood on the fence, watching his herd settle for the night. The air was cool, carrying the scent of earth and wild grasses. Lyra hovered nearby, her glow dim but steady, like a star watching over the land. "Ronan," she said, her voice unusually serious, "there is something you must know, something beyond this world, beyond even this frontier." Ronan turned, eyebrow raised. "I'm guessing it's not about taxes or weather." Lyra's lips twitched in the faintest hint of a smile, but her eyes remained serious. "No, it is far more dangerous. A force is coming, something that threatens all life in this sector. You chose me and I warned you. You will regret it, not because of me, but because of what is to come." Ronan's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "Threats are nothing new. Humans deal with threats every day. What kind of danger are we talking about?" Lyra took a deep breath, her energy shimmering faintly. The Aelith swarm, a species that does not negotiate, does not reason. They consume everything in their path, leaving nothing behind. Entire worlds have fallen before them. They are relentless. Ronan's eyes widened slightly, but he did not show fear. And you think they'll come here, to Aurora's edge? Yes, Lyra said, her voice steady but tinged with worry. Your settlement is small, but humans and Velari working together may be enough to resist. But it will not be easy. You must prepare. This is no longer just about survival, it is about defending life itself. Ronan clenched his fists, feeling a fire ignite inside him. He had faced harsh weather, wild animals, and even human greed, but nothing like this. Yet in the core of his being, he knew one truth: humans face the impossible every day. Adaptation, courage, and determination were in their blood. Then we prepare, he said firmly. No excuses, no hesitation. We'll face whatever comes and we'll survive. Lyra studied him, her eyes glowing softly. You are human. Even when faced with overwhelming danger, you do not falter. Most species would have panicked. You inspire hope. Ronan chuckled softly. Hope is just the start. Action is what counts. Let's see what we can do. The next morning, the preparations began. Ronan organized his ranchers, instructing them on defensive measures and strategies. Lyra introduced alien technology, devices that could shield sections of the herd and alert them to approaching threats. Together, they combined human ingenuity with Velari precision, creating a network of defenses that was both clever and resilient. This is impressive, Lyra admitted, watching as humans worked tirelessly to fortify the ranch. You think quickly, adapt quickly, and act decisively. Most species fail at even one of these tasks. Ronan wiped sweat from his brow, glancing at the glowing devices Lyra had deployed. Humans don't fail. We improvise, we learn, we keep going no matter what. As the days passed, Lyra trained Ronan and the settlers in alien combat techniques, showing them how to use energy barriers, project force fields, and manipulate the small-scale technology she had brought. At first, the humans struggled, fumbling with devices and misjudging distances, but they learned fast. Adaptability was their strength, and soon their movements were precise, coordinated, and effective. One evening, after a long day of training, Ronan and Lyra stood on a plateau overlooking the ranch. The sky was painted with hues of orange and violet, the wind whispering through the grass. Lyra, Ronan said quietly, I've been thinking. The Aelith swarm, if they come, they won't care about diplomacy. They'll just destroy. How can we stop them? Lyra's eyes glimmered. We cannot rely on strength alone. The swarm is relentless, but they are not intelligent in the way humans and Velari are. We must use strategy, traps, and the environment, and we must work together. Only then do we have a chance. Ronan nodded, his jaw set. Then that's what we'll do. We'll fight smart, fight together, and make sure Aurora's edge survives, no matter the cost. Lyra studied him, her expression softening. Humans, you are astonishing. Even in the face of certain danger, you inspire courage. Perhaps that is why I warned you. Regret does not come from failure alone, but from the knowledge of what you will face. You may yet surprise even yourself. Over the following days, they worked tirelessly. Ronan's ranch became a fortress of ingenuity, blending human and alien technology seamlessly. Energy barriers hid traps and channeled movement. Camouflage sensors watched the plains, alerting them to any intrusion. Humans adapted Velari combat techniques, learning to anticipate and counter attacks with precision. One afternoon, as Ronan adjusted a fence lined with sensors, Lyra approached him. There is something else you must know, she said, her voice quieter now. The Aelith swarm does not come alone. It brings smaller scout vessels first, probing defenses, learning weaknesses. We must remain vigilant at all times. Ronan straightened, determination shining in his eyes. Then we keep watch. Humans take shifts, we monitor every inch of this land and we make sure nothing surprises us. We survive by knowing and by acting. Lyra's eyes glimmered, her voice softening. Humans, you truly do not understand fear in the way other species do. You confront it and move forward. That is why you are remarkable. As night fell, Ronan and Lyra stood together under the stars. The distant plains were silent, but the tension was palpable. Every rustle of grass, every whisper of wind carried the weight of what was to come. "Do you ever doubt yourself?" Ronan asked quietly, not taking his eyes off the horizon. Lyra considered the question. "I rarely doubt. But humans inspire doubt in me, not about them, but about whether anything can match their courage. You face impossible odds and still push forward. It is humbling." Ronan smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we refuse to give up. We fight for our families, our friends, our homes. That is strength no other species can fully understand." Lyra's glow brightened slightly, reflecting the pride she felt in witnessing human determination firsthand. "Perhaps that is why I chose you. Not because I knew you could survive, but because I knew you would fight, and your species fights in ways most cannot." The next morning, a distant rumble shook the plains once more. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but Lyra's senses detected it immediately. "They are coming," she said quietly. "The scouts of the Aelith swarm, prepare yourself." Ronan nodded, glancing over the ranch. The humans were already in position, using the skills and techniques Lyra had taught them. Energy barriers hummed softly, sensors blinked in synchronization, and every settler moved with purpose and precision. "This is what humans do best," Ronan said quietly to Lyra. "We take the impossible and turn it into a challenge we can face. Together." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Yes, Ronan, together you may yet prevail." As the sun rose over Aurora's edge, the first glimmers of scout ships appeared on the horizon. Small, fast-moving vessels, almost invisible against the plains, approached steadily. The trial of survival had escalated into a true battle, not just for land but for life itself. Ronan took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of determination. "Humans survive. That's what we do. And I promise you, Lyra, we will face this and we will endure." Lyra's gaze softened. "I see now why humans are admired, feared, and misunderstood across the stars. You possess a strength that is not just physical but something far greater: courage, ingenuity, and the unyielding will to survive." The first scouts were now within range, their sleek forms glinting in the rising sun. Ronan's voice carried across the plains, firm and commanding. "Stand ready. This is our land, our herd, our home, and we will not yield." Lyra extended her hands, energy forming around her, ready to amplify Ronan's commands, protect the herd, and guide the humans through the coming storm. The calm of Aurora's edge was gone. In its place, tension, anticipation, and the raw determination of humanity filled the air. And in the quiet beneath the rising sun, one truth remained clear: humans never give up. No matter how impossible the threat, no matter how dangerous the enemy, humans endure, and they fight. Aurora's edge trembled under the approaching shadow of the Aelith swarm. The air buzzed with tension, charged with the hum of alien technology and human determination. Ronan Graves stood on the ridge overlooking his ranch, his weathered hands gripping the rail of the fence. Around him, the settlers moved with quiet focus, each one armed and ready, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear, resolve, and the fierce determination that had carried humanity through countless challenges. Lyra hovered beside him, her form glowing faintly. "They have arrived," she said softly. "The scout ships are here. The main force is not far behind. Your defenses will be tested like never before." Ronan nodded, scanning the horizon. Sleek metallic ships glinted in the distance, moving with unnerving precision. Small scouts darted ahead, probing the perimeter of the ranch. His herd, calm but alert, huddled near the energy barriers they had trained around. Every sensor blinked, every device hummed, every human prepared to defend. "Stay close, Lyra," Ronan said quietly. "This is where humans show their best side. We adapt, improvise, and fight for what matters." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "I see now why your species endures when others fail. Very well, Ronan. Together we will face them." The first scout ship swooped down, sleek and fast, its energy pulse weapons scanning the ground. Ronan's voice rang out, commanding and steady. "Defend the herd, watch the sky, use the barriers." The humans sprang into action. Energy shields activated, traps triggered, and projectiles launched with precision. The scout ship dodged and maneuvered, but human ingenuity was relentless. Ronan had anticipated its approach and set up a sequence of magnetic nets that tangled its propulsion system. Sparks flew as it crashed harmlessly into a distant ridge. Lyra extended her hands, energy pulses weaving through the defenses, enhancing the humans' actions and amplifying their effectiveness. "Incredible," she whispered. "Your species coordinates under pressure like no other I have seen." Ronan grinned faintly, adjusting his hat. "Pressure is what humans thrive under. Give us a challenge and we rise to it." More scouts followed, swarming in patterns that seemed designed to overwhelm. But the settlers, guided by Ronan and Lyra, moved with practiced precision. Every movement was calculated, every action a combination of human instinct and Velari technology. One scout ship landed briefly to release smaller drones. Ronan ran forward, grabbing a makeshift launcher he had built to disable flying devices. He fired, and the drones scattered, crashing harmlessly into the ground. Lyra projected a shield over the herd, deflecting energy pulses from the remaining drones. "You are extraordinary," Lyra said quietly, her eyes following his every move. "Most species would have failed within minutes." Ronan shrugged, crouching behind a rock to reload. "Extraordinary? Nah, just human." The battle intensified as the main force of the Aelith swarm approached. Larger ships, bristling with energy weapons, moved in formation across the plains. Ronan and Lyra climbed to higher ground to oversee the defense, coordinating the settlers and their improvised weapons. "Focus on mobility and traps," Ronan shouted. "Force them into our barriers, use the terrain, don't give them an easy path." Humans rushed to follow his orders. Energy fences pulsed with light, camouflage traps triggered, and strategically placed explosives slowed the advance of the alien vessels. Every tactic was a combination of clever planning and instinctive reaction, a perfect display of human adaptability. Lyra's energy flowed alongside theirs, enhancing defenses, stabilizing the barriers, and shielding those in danger. "Your species surpasses expectation. You do not fight blindly. You anticipate, you adapt, you overcome." Ronan's eyes narrowed, focusing on a large Aelith ship approaching the center of the ranch. "We've got one big target. Lyra, help me slow it down. Everyone else, keep the barriers up and trap the others." The settlers followed his commands, working as one. Lyra's energy pulses intertwined with Ronan's signals, creating a force that slowed the Aelith ship. Sparks flew as it collided with hidden magnetic fields, its movements faltering. Ronan grabbed a large rope and, with human ingenuity and brute strength, anchored it to a nearby boulder. He swung it with precision, tangling part of the ship's landing gear in the trap. The ship groaned, struggling against the unexpected resistance. Lyra extended her hands, channeling energy into the trap, amplifying its effect. The ship shuddered, then toppled slightly, unable to continue its advance. "You are remarkable," Lyra said, watching him closely. "Most species would have failed against even a single ship." Ronan smirked, wiping sweat from his brow. "We humans have a way of surprising even the strongest opponents." The battle raged for hours. The Aelith swarm pressed forward relentlessly, but humans, guided by instinct, intelligence, and courage, fought back with skill and determination. Every trap, every device, every tactic was designed to maximize human and Velari strengths. Ronan led from the front, moving swiftly among the settlers, offering guidance, encouragement, and support. When one group struggled against a drone attack, he rushed in, using a combination of physical skill and improvised technology to neutralize the threat. Lyra's energy shields followed him, reinforcing his actions and keeping the herd safe. At one point, a scout ship fired a pulse that shattered a barrier. Ronan jumped in, pulling a young settler out of harm's way. "It's okay," he shouted. "Stay low, follow the barrier, and keep moving. We're not losing today." Lyra hovered above, amplifying Ronan's commands and protecting the exposed areas. "Humans, you inspire awe. Your courage, it is unmatched." Finally, the tide of battle turned. The Aelith ships, frustrated by the clever defenses and coordinated human attacks, began to retreat. The settlers, exhausted but triumphant, had held the line. Every human, every device, and every ounce of ingenuity had mattered. Ronan stood at the center of the ranch, chest heaving, looking over the plains. The herd had survived. The ranch had survived. And most importantly, humanity had proven its resilience once again. Lyra descended beside him, her glow softening in relief and admiration. "You have survived. Against overwhelming odds, humans prevail. I underestimated the strength of your species, but no longer." Ronan smiled faintly, brushing dirt from his hands. "You don't have to underestimate us. We're stubborn, relentless, and we fight for what matters. That's how we survive. That's how we thrive." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "And perhaps that is why I chose you. Not because I doubted, but because I knew humanity could endure, and you have proven it today." Ronan nodded, glancing at the stars above. "We endured, we fought. And we will continue to do so. Humanity never gives up. Not now, not ever." The settlers gathered around, cheering quietly, exhausted but proud. Every one of them had played a part in the victory. Every human had shown courage, intelligence, and adaptability that even Lyra, with her vast knowledge, could not ignore. Lyra floated slightly above, her glow now steady and calm. "Humans are extraordinary. Even when faced with impossible odds, you adapt, you survive, and you inspire. The universe underestimates you at its peril." Ronan laughed softly, tipping his hat. "We don't need the universe to understand us. We just do what humans do best. We survive, we fight, and we protect what matters." As night fell, Aurora's edge was quiet once more. The battle had ended, but the lesson remained clear. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and unstoppable when united by purpose. Lyra hovered beside Ronan, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Perhaps you do not regret choosing me after all," she said softly, almost with a smile. Ronan turned to her, his expression calm, warm, and confident. "No, I don't. And I think you'll find humans are worth waiting for, worth trusting, worth fighting alongside." Lyra's glow brightened slightly, a sign of approval and quiet admiration. "Yes, I see now why humans endure, why you are admired and feared across the stars. You possess qualities that cannot be measured by strength alone. Courage, determination, intelligence, and an unyielding will. You are remarkable." Ronan smiled faintly, looking out over his ranch, the plains stretching endlessly under the moonlight. "Remarkable, huh? Maybe, but we humans, we just call it surviving. And we never stop fighting for what we love. That's the secret." The herd rested quietly nearby, the humans gathered in small groups, and the stars shone brightly above. The victory was hard-earned, but it was proof of one undeniable truth. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans fight always. And in the quiet of Aurora's edge, beneath the vast expanse of stars, one thought remained certain: no matter the odds, no matter the danger. Humans never give up. They survive, they endure, and they fight together.